The Madman!
Welcome to the top cards of Custom Hearthstone week of August 4th. This is the last set that was made before all of Boomsday cards were revealed. So let's start with Whirling Thunderstorm. 3 mana, 2/4 Shaman Elemental card. Battle Cry, give your totem spell damage +1. I think this card is pretty fair. You compare this with Ancient Mage, which is 4 mana, 2/5, which gives your adjacent minions spell damage +1. So given the conditionality of this card, I'm okay with you having to already have 2 totems out or have it be 5 mana to give spell damage +2 if you need to use a totem. So it seems like it's in a good spot. Design 4 stars, balance 5 stars. Seems fair. Seems good. In Search of Home starts off as the Great Unknown. Add 3 random cards to your hand, attack 3 times to upgrade. The attacking is kind of simulating moving closer towards home or moving forward or something like that. Upgrades to a familiar place, add 3 random cards from your class to your hand, attack 3 times to upgrade. Upgrades to home. Add 3 random class cards that start in your deck to your hand. So the main problem with home is that even in the fully upgraded version, it's not a good card. So while I really like the idea and flavor of this, the balance is off. I think that this card could be reduced in 2 mana to 4 mana. So design, 5 stars. I really like the idea of questing for finding a home. The balance, I give it 2 stars. My suggestion is simple, just reduce the mana cost to 4. Charged Vessel. 0 mana, 0/1 can cost less than 0. So an interesting idea. It could get reduced in cost and refund you 1 mana when you play it. It could even get hit by Dream Petal Florist, where if you play this card, you gain 7 mana. Now, the interesting thing is I don't actually find that broken or imbalanced, because Dream Petal Florist would always get you the 7 mana discount on the card that you wanted anyways. So no real reason to weaken your deck by including the 0 mana, 0/1. I have no problems with the balance level of this card. It seems like it would be an interesting combo, but here's my main gripe with this, and there's an argument that was made that aren't you being ridiculous when you make this argument on why you're rating the design low? But I think this card looks really bad. Like, how do you represent the fact that it costs less than 0? How do you add a negative mana symbol to the top left? Can you actually put -7 to it? That would look weird. Can you just make the number yellow or something? I think it's just too weird. Probably the design could just be retemplated to something like Battle Cry, gain mana equal to the amount this card has been discounted by, or something like that. The Charged Vessel, I'm going to give it to a design of 4 stars. I originally was going to say 1, but then I realized chat has told me, yeah, you can just fix it with something simple like that. And then the balance, 5 stars. I don't think it creates anything degenerate. Next up is a 9 mana Mage Legendary, 3/3 Libraris Brainstorm. Battle Cry, transform every card in your deck into a Scroll of Wonder. The main problem with this card, is that it destroys your deck. Whenever you draw the Scroll of Wonder, you draw another card. So the moment you draw a card, you blow up, since many of the Scroll of Wonder effects are draw cards, and then you would just fatigue and kill your deck instantly. I would also make the argument that this card should immediately draw a card, so it's at least a little bit faster. It still wouldn't be strong enough, because you would just kill yourself so often at the time when you played Libraris Brainstorm. So for that reason, I have to give the design of this, like, even though it's really amazing as a meme card, I guess I'll give it a 2 star. I was like very tempted to give it 1, but it is hilarious. And the balance is 1 star because you just die every time you play it. It'd never be played except in silly stuff. Next up we have Arcane Chunk, a nice boring mage card. Or is it? 1 mana, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. So it's like Arcane Missiles, except instead of spreading out the damage, you are dealing it all to a random enemy. Sometimes it's a minion, sometimes it's to the opponent's face. You have no idea what it is. I don't think it's too overpowered, and yet I am going to dock the balance by a lot, because in this meta, there is such a thing as a critical amount of cards, and Tempo Mage almost has that critical mass. You give them Arcane Chunk, and I think they hit that critical mass. In other words, would Tempo Mage run 4 copies of Arcane Missiles? And I think the answer is yes, they would. So Arcane Chunk is almost like another copy of Arcane Missiles. I think it's a little bit worse, but even though it's a little bit worse, it would still be run. And it would perhaps push Tempo Mage over the top. So design this card, I'm going to give it like 3 stars. It's a fair card. It's an interesting attachment of arcane missiles into one big thing. And the balance is 3 stars. I don't think it's overpowered, but it creates too much of a critical mass of cards like arcane missiles, especially with Luna. Sentience for Paladin. 1 mana, give a mech +2/+2. The basic AI controls it from now on. You would lose control of the minion. The AI decides who to attack with it. And the author even said something along the lines of, like, when asked, if the AI hasn't done anything yet because there's a taunt in the way or something, could you end the turn before they attacked? And the answer was yes. And when I read that, I was like, oh my god, this guy has absolutely no idea how many bugs and how much programming nightmare that would cause. So, design 1 stars, because, my god, I can't even imagine how it would be like to give exactly one of your cards control to the AI during a game of Hearthstone. In terms of balance, it's probably fair, because mech +2/+2 is pretty powerful, with a drawback of not being able to control it fully, so 4 stars. I think this card is fixed by having it always attack the leftmost or rightmost minion. That would make it pretty interesting. Or just it attacks a random target at the beginning of the turn. That would work also. Hunter has an Explosive Enthusiast. 4 mana, 3/3. Battlecry, choose a Death Rattle minion, add that Death Rattle to your hand as a spell. The card you target is the mana cost of the spell. If you target a mechanical whelp with it, then you're getting a 6 mana 7/7, which isn't that good. So it's clear that Play Dead and Terrascale Stalker are so much better than Explosive Enthusiast. Is it good enough to fit in on top of that? And I think it might not be quite good enough still. So all in all, even if this card were reduced by 1 mana, it would be weaker than Terrascale Stalker. But then it might actually be competitive. But then maybe you would be giving the Death Rattle Hunter way too many synergy cards, and maybe that would hit critical mass also. So that's also a problem. The design of the Explosive Enthusiast, I like the idea of adding the Death Rattle to your hand as a spell for you to be able to play later as a notable difference from just activating a Death Rattle immediately. So I'll give that a 4-star design. For balance right now, this is really weak. 2 stars for balance. And I'd be very hesitant to print another of these while Terrascale Stalker and Play Dead were both in the meta. We have a Warrior Weapon. 2 mana, 3/3. Attachable minigun. I believe it should say, can't attack unless you control a mech, to fit in with the other type of cards like that. The design of the card is interesting enough. It promotes mech synergy. It makes sense that you need to attach it to a mech of some sort in order to attack. So design 4 stars. Balance is way off the charts, I'd say. 2 mana, 3/3 attack weapon is just a tad too powerful. Or like very much so. So 2 stars on the balance. I think this would be a really good idea to introduce it as a kind of Fiery War Axe. So 2 mana, 3/2 maybe? So it's like a Fiery War Axe with a drawback then. Old Fiery War Axe is finally back. Magnetor Alpha. A nod to Magnetor Alpha. You might have forgotten about the card since no one's ever seen play on it. So now it's back at 6 mana with the same stat line of 5/3. I really like the idea of the new card with almost the same name with the new mechanic attached to it of magnetic while also being a mech. And originally thought that this might be too much, but I think it's actually fine. It is 2 mana over the old card for the mech tag and for magnetic. And while this card is pretty powerful with Dr. Boom out on the board, giving all mechs rush, and you could discover this all the time with Omega Assembly, I think that's probably fine. I wonder if it would create some sort of mid-range type mech warrior, which is really lacking at the moment. I think it's brilliant design. 5 stars on design, very clever. And the balance is also 5 stars. I think it's on point. And finally, we have Floop's Glorious Goop. A 10 mana druid card. Your next 2 spells cost 0 this turn. Intent of this card was clearly to play it and then play Ultimate Infestation and then play another card. But boy, in terms of gross overkill, is this gross overkill. It's a dead card until you get to turn 10, and it's basically dead unless you have exactly Ultimate Infestation with it. And it's kind of like how most druid decks didn't necessarily play Coon, even if they had Ultimate Infestation. It was just too much. You super don't need this 10 mana gain 4 mana, because the way I see it is you would play Ultimate Infestation, you would draw into a swipe maybe, and then that would cost 0. So a 10 mana card to gain 4 mana just isn't good enough. It's gross overkill. The design is interesting, so 2 stars for that. And it's just that it's so impractical. There's probably some mana cost for this that would make sense. It's not 10 though. Maybe 9. Anyways, the balance on this is 1 star. Maybe 8. Hard to say. So there we have it. We now are caught up to the Boomsday expansion. These cards were all designed before all of the Boomsday cards were revealed. So I look forward to moving forward. That sounded really dumb.